Hello, Renaissance students. I thought I would just jump right into today's lesson by doing a voiceover for the whole lesson. What my objective is for this video of the second lesson in this final module of year 2 of the Academy is today I'm going to be focusing primarily on bringing the painting under submission. So what that means is I've got all these really great ideas and I still have my thumbnail and I'm referring back to that, but everything needs to start being in its proper size and placement, anatomy, and things like that. So what you will see in this video is me going through, and for example, this horse was just roughly jotted in a few minutes, and so I'm coming back through now and correcting measurements and checking the negative space behind various areas and just going through. Much of this video is sped up because it's more or less just tedious work. And so I'm just refining things actually. And as I work along here, I can explain a little bit of what I'm doing. Most of it is self-explanatory, but you'll see that the whole painting needs to start making sense. And so that's where I'm going with this. After I felt comfortable with the overall anatomy of the horse, I started blocking in the values of where I felt that the light would be hitting its strongest. In this horse, it was more of a directional lighting coming from above. And I also felt that at this point to erase the raven, I may put him back in, I may not. I'm not 100% certain. When you're working out anatomy of anything, be sure to utilize your background space, your negative space, to help you define form. It's not just the positive shape that you're trying to get accurate that is your only means of capturing accuracy, but make sure that you use that negative space because it really does lend a different perspective of where you may or may not be having struggles. So I also started blocking in the background too, working on making that make more sense with the foreground and the rocks and the distant hills. I felt we needed something off to this different sides, so I added some trees and some scrub brush and mostly just making those up from my mind. I did use some reference for trees and over here some of those dead branches and how they look when they're all gray and weathered and gnarled and I also wanted that background horse to be a little bit more muted and quiet. So again, just getting the foreground and all of that in place, I did spend quite a bit of time coming back through and reworking the values and color of that foreground because it had to make sense. This is the second day that I was working on this, and I realized after sitting looking at the painting for a day or two that I needed to do more pushing and pulling. So that cloud back there needed to go further back. The sky was a little too brilliant and distracting. The cloud needed some more work, so I worked on softening some of my brush strokes and bringing in some more of the form of these cumulonimbus clouds, a little more of the ochre, Naples yellow, and some of the glow from above. After this day of painting, I felt that the cloud was still lacking in something. So you'll see in the final session of this video that I brought in more of that peach rose glow to the storm cloud. I just really did like that better. But again, keeping the cloud brushstrokes soft, capturing that feeling of, even though it's a cloud and it's a storm cloud, you still want that feeling of it being light and fluffy. But you know, you do have to capture the weight of rain and storm when you're doing a cloud like that. And that distant, faraway glow that we see when storms are coming, it's just really powerful too. So I wanted that in there. So now I'm spending some time focusing on, after the background was dry or dry-ish, just really going back through the horse's head. It's very weak in its overall placement and form. So taking a brush, it's more like a pencil, with a very inky mixture of just brown and blue, I'm coming back through and refining the drawing of the horse's head. As you can see in the clip before this, I am actually holding my laptop in my lap because the painting is so large, I couldn't set it on my easel without it being too far away for reference. So like I've said in the past, I like to keep my reference material and my canvas and my palette all within close proximity if I'm working on something that has a difficult drawing level. So the further your eyes have to travel, the more difficult it is for your brain to remember what it is you're trying to work on. So I've even taped pictures right to my canvas while I'm painting, and that's another thing you could do. So I'm just holding my laptop right up close so I can have that close proximity to get the drawing accurate. When working on something like a horse's head that has such solid and beautiful form, on my palette down below, I have different piles of color and value mixed up. The lighter, chalkier gray value for around the eyes and the muzzle, I have in one pile, and then the darker, deep shadows, and then different values and colors in between, where the light is hitting its strongest on the top of the bone of his muzzle and just the whole face. I have a more of that russet brown. And then as it dips down into shadow, as his whole head is turned, it's obviously a darker brown. But I really loved the form that his head was in as he tipped a little bit toward us. And so here I'm just double checking measurements. I'm taking my thumb to his eye and the tip of the brush to the tip of the ear. Actually, it's on the crest of the horse's neck. And I'm checking that here, checking that angle to see where that top eye lands in relation to the eye down below. Getting those two eyes directly across from each other, no matter how the head is tipped, is vital to getting the accuracy of the head. The nostrils, if you could see both, are the same principle. You have to get those exactly across from each other, and you don't always see both of them. I had noticed that there was far too much light hitting the horse, given the direction where the light's coming from, and so I needed to basically repaint the whole horse. The anatomy was fine, but I just needed a darker value over the whole thing. So this is the end of that session, and wanted to thank you for joining me. Next week, we're going to finish this painting.